I don't want to live the rest of my life, however long that is, waiting for somebody's text. I want to live that time doing what I love and being with people that I love and living in a place that I love. That's what I want to do. So I'm not saying it's a remedy, but like having that realization that I don't have forever, that kind of helps.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 603. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. We have a conversation about shit that matters with unqualified people today. I know, it's been a minute. My friend Kerra is on, and she and I connected online because of a LinkedIn post. LinkedIn. I know. Are we connected on LinkedIn, you and me? Send me a message. I'm Hey Andrea Owen on LinkedIn. We should connect. We should be grown-ups and do some online networking. It'll be fun. But I posted on there a while back about being, kind of identifying as an anxiously attached person and how it sort of bleeds over here into my work life with y'all. And Kerra DM'd me and we decided to have a conversation about shit that matters, because that matters. And we're both unqualified people. In other words, if you're new to this part of the series, it's where I bring on friends/colleagues who aren't actual experts in it. Neither am I. Around a topic, and we just talk it out. It's kind of like real life conversation, and also coming from the lens of personal growth and sort of being on that path to growing in that area. That's the whole point of these types of podcast episodes. So it's less interview, more conversation. And I usually don't read bios on this because it's not like I'm interviewing an expert, but she's doing such amazing things. I really would like to introduce her to you. She's been on the show before. I will put that link in the show notes, and she's just an incredible human. So Kerra Bolton, over the past 30 years, has been a journalist, television and film producer, creative director, essayist, political operative, director, and foodie. Kerra recently launched Woodbine Ventures, helping individuals and companies navigate career transitions and employee downsizing with clarity and grace. Underneath Kerra's ventures is her core purpose to help others live soulfully, disrupt generational patterns, and embrace joy. So without further ado, here is a conversation about shit that matters with unqualified people. Kerra, welcome to a conversation about shit that matters with unqualified people episode. We connected on this topic on LinkedIn, of all places.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a post where I talked about my anxious attachment style and how it extends beyond just my romantic relationships and into people too.
Yes. And I was really surprised that you were bold enough to admit that on a platform where people are like, I am so honored to make pizza for the 3rd grade class today. And Mrs. class. So it was great or like they over confess and it's just like, oh my God, I can't stand this.
Well, I mean, I'm always sort of, especially on LinkedIn, I'm like, what am I going to talk about? Because I've built a business really and a brand on being really transparent, and I hate the word authentic, especially when I'm talking about this. But before it was even a thing, and and I by no means was using it to build my community or anything. I just felt like I was going to die if I didn't talk about these things, and because of my personality, I just decided to do it on a public platform, which I don't think is for everyone. But LinkedIn is tricky because like you're supposed to be more professional, and I'm like, I don't know how to do that. So here's all my deepest, darkest secrets. And what it has to do with work. Exactly. That's my LinkedIn strategy.
And those of us who are like fans are just like, yes, thank you. I am not alone in the cray cray.
And those listening who are kind of new to conversations about shit that matters with unqualified people series on Make Some Noise podcast, this is where I bring on my friends or colleagues who aren't necessarily experts on a particular topic. And we just sort of like shoot the shit about this. And I invited you to come on and talk about this because it resonated with you. And here we are. But I've had a lot of experts come on my show to talk about anxious attachment. And I want to start in just a minute. I'm going to kind of read just from the internet what that actually is. But I'm curious, like, what's your experience? Like, how did you first find out that that was you?
Oh gosh. Well, it was a couple of boyfriends ago
Yeah.
and it went like hot and heavy. And then he like backed off and I was wondering what was going on. And I read this Medium article and it sounded like me and it sounded like him. So he was an avoidant. And as we'll get to, like, avoidants shouldn't date other avoidants because then nobody's talking in the room. Right. And I'm like, I am anxious. Then I bought a book and I read about it and it really helped me.
I read Attached. What did you read?
I think I read that same book.
I listened to it on audiobook and I felt like I got a little bored with it, where it was interesting information, but it was felt a little clinical and just a lot of case studies, which I feel like I got it after like 5. It was a lot. But it's been a long time since I've read that book. So for people who aren't super familiar with it, I think that most of the people that listen to my show get it. But I'm going to read what article is this? This is from attachmentproject.com. I don't know these people, but I just Googled it and here's what I found. People with the anxious attachment style often internalize what they perceive to be a lack of affection and intimacy as not being, quote unquote, worthy of love, and they intensely fear rejection as a result. In an attempt to avoid abandonment, an anxious attacher may become clingy, hypervigilant, and jealous in a relationship. They're often overwhelmed by the fear of being alone, so they do whatever they can within their power to hold on to their relationship. Someone with an anxious attachment style sees their partner as the remedy to their strong emotional needs. That last sentence.
Yes. That's where I was for a long time until recently.
Oh, I can't wait to hear how it changed, but let's go to the dark side first.
Okay. I'm embracing my dark side.
Let me go back to that description. Do you also identify as a codependent?
Yes. Yeah. I had a childhood, like my parents were like everybody else's parents, wonderful, flawed people who I love, especially before they died. So I grew up in a home where my parents were emotionally and physically volatile. And so I had to be hyper vigilant about their moods. And I had to be very careful about their moods. And it was really hard. And I think that's where the codependency was born, because I was constantly paying attention to other people's moods as a survival mechanism. So do you identify as a codependent?
100%. Yeah. And I think I've come a long way, but it's still, I have found that in my experience with healing from different behaviors that don't serve us, it's an ebb and flow. It's not linear by any means. And it's not like you just improve and it's steady. There's a back and forth, a little bit of a push pull, but definitely the trajectory is positive. But I had a different experience where everything was, also raised by flawed humans, was great growing up. I had a lot of affection and attention growing up. And then right around puberty is when I felt a pullback, especially from my dad. So I think I had more of an emotional connection with him. This is not at all like blaming my mom. It's just kind of like how it happened. She wasn't necessarily like emotionally absent, but the way that it worked out with him sort of shifting during that time, I took it as a pretty severe rejection. Like it was definitely my first broken heart, but it was largely unconscious. Like I don't remember, at 13 thinking like, where did he go? Like it was a slow process of him sort of like moving away from me. And that was also right around the time where I became just boy crazy. And, the attention from boys sort of slipped in where he left, which is inconsistent. So it just like continued this inconsistency of emotional anything really emotional, being there. And so, yeah, that started the mess with me. And it wasn't until a lot later that well, no, I was in my 20s, I think, when a friend that I worked with, and she was in her 40s, and she told me about codependence and gave me her Melody Beattie book that was dog-eared and highlighted. And I remember reluctance of even looking at it. And then when I read it and like just checked off all of the bullet points, was like, oh my God, this is who I am. But I was by no means in a place where I wanted to fix any of it. I'm like, I'm just gonna ride this wave.
Yes.
It's like, I say that because there's might be people listening who are sort of interested in personal development, but not so much interested in the integration of it, which you're exactly where you need to be. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just part of the process.
Yeah. I mean, not everything needs to be fixed or healed. If that's the way the person wants to go around in the world, that's the way they want to show up and show up as that human being. There may or may not be consequences to it. I think that as much as I love personal development and I'm steeped in it, like acceptance is a great thing too. It's just like, there's some things that I can change and I want to change, and some things that I don't.
Yeah, or some things that you want to change and you do, and then again you fall back on because sometimes old habits die hard.
Yes. Yes.
Depending on what season of your life you're in. So can you give some examples? Like what did your anxious attachment style look like in real life?
So this is totally relatable. It's like you're dating somebody and you text them and you're waiting for them to text you back. And it could be 5 minutes, it could be 5 hours, it could be 5 days. And I would just freak out.
Yeah.
The closer that I was to that person, and if I didn't hear from them within like 10, 15 minutes, all of a sudden I was catastrophizing, and the person could be just like, I was working, like I was, the delivery person came and, or whatever, I was on the other line and I didn't feel like texting or whatever it is, but I just like would freak out and think it's the end of the relationship.
Oh God. Yeah. I think that's probably the most relatable example. I mean, even before, so I was in a long relationship in my 20s from when I was 17 until I was 31. And this was before texting. When we split up, texting had just started to like become more mainstream. And it was mostly like in-person stuff. Like he would be chronically late for everything. And also the status of our relationship always felt sort of unstable and in the air. And I took it hugely personally. Like it was, the way I describe it is I saw myself through the eyes of my partner.
Yes.
And when it wasn't going as smoothly as I expected it to, as smoothly as I quote unquote needed it to be, then I thought there was something wrong with me. I would get enraged is where I would go. Like I would just lose my mind to the point of I would fly into these rages. And looking back, I just didn't have the emotional maturity. I didn't have the emotional literacy. And I also didn't have the strength and courage to walk away from what was really a destructive relationship. We were too young. We both didn't know really our ass from a hole in the wall, like to put it plainly, like, and just had no business being in a serious relationship, let alone a marriage, which is what we ended up in, and it ended up ending. But it's really interesting also how anxiously attached people tend to attract avoidance without even knowing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the most common pairings is anxious attachment and avoidance, and because like, I guess anxious and anxious people are like all over each other, which it might feel suffocating after a while, because you think that maybe that's what we'd want. But then like the avoidant people, like you can't have avoidant and avoidant. Avoidants actually want affection, but they just want it on their terms. And so when I first came across the book Attached, I had a conversation with my then boyfriend. And we talked about like our different styles. And so we had safeguards in the relationship. Now, it didn't make things, it made things better, but it didn't get rid of the anxiety. So safeguards, meaning like we had designated times and days to see each other every week. So I never had to guess like what days are we spending together because I already knew
Oh, that's
those
smart.
were.
Or like, should I reach out to him or should I wait for him to reach out to me? Like that whole mind game.
Yes, yeah. So I
Okay.
didn't have to do that. And then we always had a good night text, and I was usually the initiator of the good night text. And sometimes he would initiate, but he knew he needed to respond in a certain amount of time. And in that relationship, I found that the more space I gave him, the more affection and attention he gave me when I needed it.
Interesting.
So it was like a back and forth. It was really interesting because I didn't know, like, oh, you give people space and they come back and they're, really ready and charged to be with me. So that was really cool.
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. I have definitely been in that place where my paycheck ran out before the next one got here. Life doesn't happen bi-weekly, so why should payday? The money you earn can be in your hands today with Earnin. Earnin is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the Earnin app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. You can use Earnin to pay for a girls' night out, a last-minute gift for a loved one, or even summer camp for the kids. Make Earnin a part of your financial routine and join Earnin's over 3.5 million customers who say things like, when I think about Earnin, I think about financial stability, security. It gives me a lot of peace of mind. Download Earnin today, spelled EARNIN, in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the Earnin app, type in noise under podcast when you sign up. It really, really helps the show. Noise under podcast. Subject to your available earnings, location, daily max, and pay period max. See earnin.com/TOS for details. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Ladies, are you over 40 like me and dealing with hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, some vaginal dryness, or weight gain? Don't just accept it as part of aging. These symptoms are often linked to hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause. At MIDI Health, they get it. Their experts know what you're going through and how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause specialists offering safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. And guess what? MIDI care is covered by insurance. So stop pushing through it alone. Schedule a virtual visit and dive deep into your unique symptoms and health background. You'll walk away feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling better. Visit MIDI Health today and reclaim your well-being. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. joinmidi.com. It's so interesting to me that anxious people tend to attract avoidance before we even know what their behavior is like. Like, how do we do that? It's some kind of like magic sonar that's happening. I don't know. Has there been research on this? I need to ask one of the experts I have on.
Yes, yes, that would be great. I don't know. I think for me, it was like a familiarity.
Hmm.
And so, like, the emotionally unavailable person was very enticing to me. And when I was younger and a lot less emotionally mature, it was like I would specifically go after that person because it was like I loved the chase at that time.
Yeah.
And then I figured out, oh, there's other things I could be doing with my life. But like
Hmm.
there'd be like in my 30s, like I definitely love the chase.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's always fun, she says sarcastically. But I think for me, what I've noticed in terms of being attracted to avoidance, it was really helpful for me to read the book Getting the Love You Want by Harv Hendricks. Have you read that one about the imago theory?
Mm-mm.
So I talk about this book all the time. Harv Hendricks was a marriage counselor similar to John Gottman for decades, and he created a theory that when we are young children, we create unconsciously this kind of persona in our mind, what he calls the imago. And it's basically the characteristics of our primary caregivers. And it's both their positive and negative traits. And because we feel safe there. And again, emphasis on also the negative traits because we feel safe and comfortable there. And when we grow up and start to enter our romantic and intimate relationships, when we meet someone new, then they check off more boxes, the more we are attracted to them. And so in essence, he says like it's not necessarily a bad and terrible thing, but where it gets bad and terrible is when we are unconsciously trying to heal our childhood wounds through our partner. We're recreating our childhoods, hoping for a new outcome this time. And where it gets messy is we're running around in circles in our relationships trying to do this and like not realizing, and it's not our partner's job. Like it's really not up to them. So when I realized that, it was a way for me to sort of have compassion for myself. Like, okay, I'm not broken. I'm not someone who's like a bad picker. It's just I didn't know. This is what, it's just it's inner child work, really. The reparenting is what it is. And so I sat with that information for a really long time before I, did anything about it. And when I realized that I was in my marriage, which I'm, untangling, it was my second marriage that I'm untangling right now. And so I know that when it comes to dating again, it's going to be interesting because I don't even want to think about dating again. Like, to be honest,
I know, I
I'll get
know.
laid, but like, I'm not looking for my third ex-husband. I'll tell you what. Like it just sounds exhausting. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
God, here I go finding another avoidant. Can't wait.
Yes.
Anyway, I think it'll be interesting when that time comes for me to sort of seek out those signs in the beginning and do what I can more proactively and more consciously to be able to take care of myself. So stay tuned, everybody.
Well, I want to go back to something that you said about like not being a bad picker, right?
Mhm.
Because I feel like so much of what happens that goes on in romantic relationships, heterosexual romantic relationships, always gets put at the woman's feet.
Yeah.
Like no one tells men that they need to read these books and they need to like fix themselves, and so they're just like showing up and
Yeah.
we're doing the emotional labor of
The caretaker.
being the caretaker while we work on our own stuff. And that's just like way too much. And so I'm so glad that you said like it's not because I'm a bad picker, because like people would say the same thing, like you just picked the wrong men. And it's like, no, I'm really just trying to solve a childhood wound or heal a childhood wound. And I don't have the tools to do it.
Yes. It can be like even just that alone, the knowledge of our stuff. I think it can, my hope is that for people listening, that it leaves you with so much compassion for yourself. And also I'm glad that you mentioned, this cultural expectation that women have. And yeah, just that we are the ones to fix things. We're the ones to take care of kind of like all the emotional stuff. Oh, that's exhausting. I'm over it. I'm so over it.
I am too. Like I had a funny story. So like I'm not dating. I had a really bad breakup. And we can talk about that later. And I had a really bad breakup. So I'm like, I'll be available in 2025. By then I should be like okay again. And so I was like, well, I'm getting kind of lonely. So there's this one guy in the neighborhood, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe we could go out and have pizza. I just like keep it casual. So we get at the table, and he announces that he'd been in like this gang and that he went to jail for 8 years and like all of this stuff. And I'm like, am I safe? Do I need to leave? He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're good. So, like, during the conversation, he invites me to hang out with him and some friends on New Year's Eve. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't have anything better to do. Let's
Okay.
just figure out where this goes, right? Like, on my date with the gangbanger. So on New Year's Eve, he calls me and he cancels.
Oh my gosh. How did you
So
feel? Were you glad or no?
well, at first it stung a little. Like it hadn't been the first time that somebody canceled a date on me on New Year's Eve, so it
Oh.
wasn't like this devastation. The first time I ended up on the stage with the OJs with like a middle school friend, so it turned out well. But this time, I just like went to sleep, and I just was like, okay, it'll be 2024 when I wake up.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Talk about avoidant.
so
And of
many
course, I
questions.
haven't seen him.
You
And
haven't. Okay. That was my
I have
question.
not seen him. He's never talked to me again. I haven't talked to him again. I'm just like, if you cancel on New Year's Eve at 6 p.m., like there's a special place in hell for you.
Yeah,
And
I think so too. And so you haven't seen him on the news or anything. Like he's not
yeah, I mean, I
wanted.
haven't,
Best of luck to him.
best of luck to him.
Yes.
Yes, a fine
Well,
individual.
delete and bless. Isn't that what they say?
Yes.
Well, what kind of person do you find yourself attracted to? Like, do you find yourself attracted to different types of people now that you've gotten older and evolved in your personal development work, or is it kind of the same?
I think it's the same. Like at first, I was looking for people who, like, again, this is emotional immaturity, like made up for my deficiencies. So, I think of myself as like warm and creative and expressive. And so then I would like date engineers and
Mhm.
who are
The
introverted.
opposite.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and because I was thinking, well, maybe they'll make me smarter.
Right.
And now I'm really attracted to people who are warm, creative, and expressive. And I don't know how that's going yet because I haven't really tested it in the real world. But that's the kind of person I'm attracted to.
I've always, as we were saying, I've always been attracted to men who also, I really, is my kryptonite are the ones that I think I can fix.
Yeah, that was the last breakup. Oh, that was brutal.
It's like I think that I have this fantasy that I'm going to be the one who is
Yes.
special enough, who is smart enough, who is good enough to be the one where they change and that they, meet me where I'm at and see me and understand me. And one of the things that I've realized, this is recently, I came to this epiphany that I have a habit of feeling like love is only real if there's a spectrum. If I'm either chasing it and the spectrum goes all the way over to I am like desperately begging for it from this person, somewhere on that spectrum, that is what I have created a pattern for myself where I'm like, that's real love. If I'm doing that, like if it just is agonizing in that way. And it can be like a slow burn, like a long relationship where that's just sort of playing in the background. Or, like in my first marriage where it was just this roller coaster, like of really high highs and really low lows, just that intensity, either up or down. But either way, that's been my pattern where I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. But I'd be lying if I said like, there isn't a part of me that still thinks that's like romantic and amazing and just it's like fodder for me, just the fuel that I need. And like those entrenched habits, I think those are embedded in our subconscious, they're embedded in our brains, they're embedded in our inner child, and those are the hardest to untangle from. I don't know if that's been your experience, but that's mine. For the sake of sounding
Well,
dramatic.
before you drop that bombshell on all of us, because I can't see my face. And I'm like, girl, what? But two things that I've learned, especially in the past year. One is no coochie is that special.
Yeah, I
Like, it's
know.
just not that special.
Not that magical.
And two is that if the relationship depends on one person changing, you don't have a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You have like therapy with
Magic.
sex and cocktails.
Yeah. Right. Never-ending project.
Yes,
I tried
yes.
that twice.
But yeah, but like it's been kind of for me, it's just kind of been an evolution. Like I learned that in business as well as in life and personal relationships that like the best things kind of come to me. I don't have to go chase them. And when I get into a pattern of chasing them, then I know that, okay, this is bad. But then you never know who comes to you because the last two relationships I wasn't chasing, like they first chased me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, well, I can see myself, hanging out with this person. And it was just horrible. So like, I don't know which is better. Like,
Yeah.
at least like when you chase, it's kind of like you're choosing that person, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I don't want to be the pick me girl either.
Oh, yeah. I think I'm retired from that at least, which is, I think many of us go through that phase. And for me,
Mm.
that was when I was younger, but I'm, late 40s now. And I feel like I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. But it's been interesting for me to realize that when I have chemistry with someone, what I feel like I have chemistry
Mhm.
with someone, but then other people I sort of leave behind. And I'm like, no, he seems kind of boring or whatever. It's the ones I have the most intense chemistry with that end up being the ones that are the most
Yes.
avoidant. And I'm like,
Yes.
how does this happen? Like, that's why it's so interesting to me. Like, there's some kind of sonar that's happening.
Yes.
Because this is
Yes.
before this man has ever even, like, we've had any kind of emotional
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
It is like it comes out of their pores or something. I need to understand this better. Like, how do we recognize it so quickly? And I think it points to Harv Hendricks' work. Like, just
Mhm.
because now, like, when I see it and I'm like, oh, there it is. Like, I see it right away when I see that avoidant. When I try to like be vulnerable, like, I'll like throw a little toe in, and then
Mhm.
I call it like the Heisman. Like, if anyone's familiar with that it's football college award, it's like, like just like pushing away. I'm like, oh, there it is. There's the Heisman. Like, and there's something in my brain that just like latches on.
But I think it's because you like to do impossible things or seemingly impossible things. Because I think, like, we talk about the anxious attachment like it's all awful, but I don't think it is. Some of the traits can actually be turned around to, like,
Mm-hmm.
you put yourself out there. You are exactly who you are. You're
Yeah.
not afraid to go after what you want. And maybe we channel those things a little bit differently, but it doesn't mean that we're like bad people. It just means like, and then let's put some blame on these avoidants, right? Like they know we're anxious,
Yeah.
and and they continue to like be avoidant because that's what they know how to do. And so it's like if you're avoidant and you're a person who needs a lot of space in order to be in a relationship, why are they drawn to people who are anxiously attached?
That's true. Do you know who Therapy Jeff is? Do you follow him on social media at all?
I don't.
He's got a huge platform. He made a Instagram, a TikTok and an Instagram reel. I'll see if I can find it, where he talks about like the pros of being anxiously attached. And it was nice to hear that. I'm like, okay, there are some good qualities. And he did the same thing for avoidance and I think disorganized as well. But I have found that in the situations where I am super attracted to somebody who has a really avoidant attachment style, I'm able to see it very quickly and I will name it.
Mm.
And there's that. And also the other thing I wanted to mention is that in the very beginning, and in retrospect, this has happened before, but I always ignored it. But like now, when I meet someone, even before first meeting, when I'm attracted to this person. So during first meeting, like my gut will tell me
Yeah.
right away. And it has never, ever been wrong. Ever. Never. Oh, this person, I had one situation where I met someone and the download that I got was this person is either going to be a major life lesson or they have the potential to ruin my life.
Mm-hmm.
And turns out after months of spending time with that person, sure enough, But I knew it all along. And so it's like kind of like watching the car crash. And I'm like, do I want to sit around and watch this happen? Yeah. But I will say in regards to that person, I definitely have pulled back. You can't, I'm not going to let you do this to me. Like, I'm not here for it. So there's a little bit of growth over here.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I can definitely relate.
Fast forward to the end of 2024 and think about your goals. What can you do right now to give yourself the best chance of succeeding? If you want to learn a new language, you absolutely should get Babbel. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel's designed by real people for real conversations. Studies from Yale, Michigan State University, and others continue to prove Babbel is better. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. Now it's so easy to speak simple conversation phrases with the guy that takes care of my lawn without having to consult language apps. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/noise. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/noise, spelled BABBEL.com/noise. Rules and restrictions may apply. You know when you're listening to a song on the radio and you get the profound feeling that the song playing was written about you? Now imagine having the power to gift that same incredible feeling to someone you love with an original song from Songfinch that actually is written just for them. Songfinch lets you create an original radio quality song inspired by your own life and the people you love. It's completely unique, personal, and lasts forever. Whether your song is for Father's Day, an upcoming graduation, wedding, or anniversary, or even just a gift to show your loved one how much you care, start your song now to lock in one of Songfinch's top artists. I gifted Songfinch to myself, a song about my late father, and I'm so excited to play you a clip.
Flipping through the slides of learning how to live and how to love, and coming undone, a father daughters without, so she writes it down.
One of my clients heard about Songfinch from this podcast, and so she had a song created for her son who was graduating, and she told me that they both cried when she played it for him and that it exceeded her expectations. For a limited time, Songfinch is letting our listeners upload their song to Spotify for free, so you and the lucky person you gift it to can listen to it anywhere, anytime. Go to songfinch.com/noise and start your song. After you purchase, you'll be prompted to add Spotify streaming for your original song for free, a $50 value. Again, my URL is songfinch.com/noise. Don't forget to share your song with us too. songfinch.com/noise.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Okay, I want to switch over to, because you talked about it a little bit, like what have you done to try to solve the problem? So in your former relationship, did you bring up the conversation about kind of like what you need? What did that look like?
Well, in that particular relationship, I did. We were spending so much time together and I was just loving it. And he was just like miserable.
Oh.
Not that he was miserable being with me, but for him, it was too much time. He had other responsibilities in his life. So we sat down and we talked about, okay, well, he's like, I need to pull back the number of days that we're together. And we worked out a schedule. And I was like, well, what about the good night text? Because like, I really like that. And so we're like, yeah, let's keep that in. So like having the consistency really helped to give the space for me. It's not to say I was never anxiously attached in that relationship, but it just helped me exhale because I knew what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't this crazy roller coaster. But then after he broke up with me, I didn't see that one coming. But he did do it on he did it on a night that we weren't supposed to be together. So that should have told me something. It wasn't on our schedule, is what I'm trying to say. But the next boyfriend or lover, love interest, whatever, it was like a complete freaking train wreck. And like I would try to be an adult and have conversations like, hey, I noticed that you're pulling back. Do you need enough space? Like, what's going on with you? And he would just say, like, thank you for giving me my space. And I love you. And you're so awesome. And like, maybe we just need to spend more time together. And like, meanwhile, the man was cheating on me with multiple people. So it was just like, it's so hard to trust and to give that person their space if that's what they need. But now it's like, okay, where are they out with someone else? Or they just like living their life? And so that's why I'm taking some time to be with myself so that I'm not projecting that onto whoever the next person is.
Okay. Interesting. I have nothing to contribute to this part of the conversation because I'm still in a little bit of a, limbo stage, a mess over here. So I'll keep you posted on what I've done to try to solve the problem. But I do know that for the first time in my life, so I have not been single. This is embarrassing. I have not been single for longer than about 4 months since I was 15.
Wow.
Talk about codependence. Yeah.
Wow.
I have always, one of the categories for my own worthiness has been like, am I in a relationship or not? And, regardless of the status of that relationship, like how well it's going, it's like being in a relationship makes me feel the safest. And I think that, I'm not uncommon in that regard. Yeah. So the way that it went, it was like I had my very first serious boyfriend when I was 15, went immediately from that relationship to a different relationship when I was 17, married that person. We split up when I was 31. And that's when I was single for about 4 months. Ended up dating somebody who was just mentally not well and conned me out of about $10,000, lied about having a terminal illness to cover up his drug addiction. Like it was like kind of poster child story for both me, the anxious, and him, the avoidant, and also like mix in addiction and mental illness. And it was just it was a recipe for, I guess you could say success in terms of like what we were both unconsciously looking for. But when that ended, I almost immediately met my second husband. And then we got married about a year and a half later. And then I'm just now, unraveling that. And so I think any therapist would give me the advice of like, maybe it's time for you to like focus on yourself and not be in search of a relationship. Because what I realized is that doing that allowed me to just avoid all of the things in my life, like my own pain and uncertainty and just things that I needed to work on. It's, what it reminds me of is like, when you're going through a really hard time, or even if you just have a lot on your mind and you're laying in bed scrolling on your phone and, you should probably put your phone down and close your eyes and turn the lights off and go to bed. But the thought of just being with your own thoughts in the quiet darkness, like in that time of putting your phone down, turning the lights out from the time that you fall asleep. If you're anything like me, that could be 20 minutes. It could be many hours. It's just like, it's just a mystery. You don't know how long it's going to take you to fall asleep, how long you have to be alone with your own thoughts. That is torturous. Like it's just to be alone with my own agony and sadness and uncertainty and grief and sorrow, like all of those really heavy stuff. It just, it feels like walking into a haunted house.
Oh, wow.
And I don't want any part of it. And so I think that for me to not be in pursuit of a relationship or have somebody at least who like I have kind of on the side is going to be probably one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Well,
And I'm in it right now.
You got me virtually holding your hand.
Oh, thank you.
So you're not alone. You're totally not alone. And I bet you like there's tons of listeners that are like, I got you, girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had the opposite of experience. Like I'm an only child.
Mm-hmm.
And so I, dated in high school. And then I met my ex-husband when I was 22, I think. And we got engaged 6 weeks later.
Oh, wow.
And we married when I was 23. And I got divorced at 30. Yeah, I think I was divorced at either 30 or 31 when it was finalized. And I've been single and dating for like 20 years, basically, because I'm 51. And I've been in long-ish terms relationships, but I've had many years, like 4 years, where I wasn't dating anybody. So I'm used to being on my own, but then I dated the one guy that I've referenced in the relationship where I first came to the anxious and avoidant, like understanding what that was. And it was really nice to be in a relationship because, I'm in Mexico and he is Mexican. And there were a lot of things that he could negotiate on a day-to-day basis for me that I didn't have to do myself. And so once he left, I think I had some learned helplessness going on. And then I dated someone else last year, and that just nearly wrecked me. I mean, it almost just knocked me out. And after that one, I was like, okay, I need to just stay by myself and rebuild because I'm not even in a place where I can bring a healthy and whole person to the relationship. Because I got to rebuild me. And then I wanted to go back to something earlier in the conversation where we were talking about like whether there's a signal that says like this person is avoidant. So I met this guy on the street and it was like it was like a meet cute from a rom-com. Like we were drawn to, like I was dancing to the disco that was playing in my head and he was walking down the street with a grocery bag and we like magnetically drawn toward each other. And we go out on a couple of dates and then like he moves to Thailand. I'm like, oh my gosh. Even when I'm not thinking about it, I'm still, attracting people who cannot be with me for some reason.
I don't know. I just feel like that's also such a perfect metaphor too, that he literally moves to another country, like on the other side of the earth.
Yeah, I mean, we text and, he's like, but I don't have this like, oh my God, like if he doesn't text me in 15 minutes, because he's on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
So it's like, but the other thing is that I've learned how to do is meet people where they are. So there's like Alejandro, who's, I know we're not supposed to say names, but that's a common name here.
Sure.
And he lives in
Lady Gaga's Alejandro.
Yes. He lives in a place in Mexico. And he, at first, like he would give me all this attention and then the attention started drifting. And at first, like I started chasing. And now I have a thing called meet them where they are. So like if somebody is continuing a conversation with me, I will continue a conversation with them if I feel like it. If they pull back, then I just pull back and I'm like, okay,
so you're matching their energy.
Yeah, I'm matching their energy. And I found out that it really works for me.
Yeah. I suspect that that's probably what I will do as well. And it will be a very conscious decision. Like it's something that I'm going to have to work on. I wanted to ask you something that made me curious. You said when the last relationship broke up or somewhere along your journey, you spent 4 years single, kind of, it sounded like by design, and you spent that time rebuilding yourself. So what did that actually look like?
Well, it was after my mom passed away. So by that point, the only like immediate family member I had alive was a grandmother in a nursing home. And she was like 100 years old when she died. And I had just come to Mexico and I knew that I was an emotional wreck and that I did not want to be in a relationship, even though I had relationship desires. because I knew that I couldn't bring a whole happy person to the relationship, and it wasn't fair to the other person. And it wasn't fair to me to ask somebody else to fix me. I just spent a lot of time like discovering the area. I'm a foodie, so I'd go into different restaurants, and it feels like you're never alone when you're in a restaurant, and like you get to know the staff. And so I just kind of did the things that I felt like doing and the things that brought me joy and making friends and kind of creating my own life. And I love to travel. So I traveled a lot too.
I love that. I want to do that. It's so fresh for me. Like it's hard for me to imagine. Like I've said this to a few people, you know, as I'm walking away from this marriage that was a decade and a half long, and like we've built a life together. Like the thought of having my own time and my own agenda. Like, of course, I have two teenagers, excuse me, that I'm going to share time with my soon to be ex-husband. But, you know, people keep saying, and I appreciate this so much. They're like, oh my gosh, there's going to be so much life for you on the other side. You can, you know, design the life that you want. And that sounds good. I like the sound of that, but it still seems so like, I have no idea. It's very much pointing towards, because a lot of my clients, they'll come to work with me, and you know I actually don't even really ask the question that often anymore of like, what do you want? Because a lot of times they don't know. So I ask them first, like, what do you not want anymore? Like, what do you want to have stop? Or what do you want to have go away? And I feel like I'm in that place of where it just seems like such an open book. Like, I don't know what I want to fill the pages with. Like I'm in that sort of limbo stage, the bridge of feeling overwhelmed. And there's still a lot of, you know, like emotional stuff from my marriage ending. And also like this marriage ending has kicked up stuff from my own parents' divorce. It has kicked up stuff from my first marriage falling apart. It's sort of like it's like making me relive it all, I think, and a lot of stuff that I never dealt with before. So it's super layered. So I'm giving myself some grace in that of like, okay, I don't have to solve all of my problems, you know, right away. And I also don't have to make all these plans and goals and like, you know, create like my own kick-ass life. And it's like, I'm still in the weeds. And so I'm not, you know, beating myself up for not knowing, but it can feel a little overwhelming of just like, all I know is that I'm very clear that like, I do not want to jump into another relationship, which I'm so used to doing. Like that is my pattern. Just to like, let me find someone new to heal my heart, to heal my broken heart. So I'm very clear and really proud of myself that I'm like, no, I'm not the answer. Like that is going to result in disaster for everyone involved. I don't want to put anyone else through that. I certainly don't want to put myself through that. And also I'm so tired of doing all the heavy lifting in relationships. Like I'm not saying that like I was perfect and I'm, you know, always the only one that did anything. Like, no, my partners definitely did the best that they could, but I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted and I want to just like not have to, I'm excited to not have to worry about anybody else's feelings except like mine and my kids and my dog.
I can completely relate. I mean,
partner.
like, yeah. I mean, cause like the last relationship, like I said, it just kicked my ass. Like, I mean, it humbled me in ways I never thought I could be humbled. And I had the realization that this person reminded me of my father.
Yeah.
In multiple ways. And it was like, I was dating, like circling back to the beginning of the conversation, I was dating what was familiar. Part of what hurt me so bad was like my former partner, I believe at the time that we were dating, was suffering from multiple addictions and had some other things he was dealing with. And my father had multiple addictions, and I couldn't save my father. Like it was my job. I couldn't save him, and he died. And so when we broke up, I'm like, I can't save this person. And I literally said, you're going to die in 10 years if you don't fix yourself. And of course, he didn't take my advice. He probably thought I was hysterical. But once I realized that I was in that relationship because I wanted to save them, because I had never gotten a chance to save my father, that just made things so clear for me. And it was just like, I'm not in the business of saving people, not anymore. Like I couldn't save my father. I can go on about cultural expectations that made me feel like I needed to save people. And it was just like, no, I get to center myself. I get to center my life. I get to center my feelings. I get to center and it's like 24 hours by 24 hours, right? Like we don't have to have these great plans. I mean, I do have a very strong vision for my future, but I'm just taking it 24 hours at a time. And some days it's good and some days it's bad. Sometimes I take it 24 seconds at a time because on the really bad days.
I just want to acknowledge that for a minute. I imagine, and I'm making this up, and I would love to hear, if you think I'm on target or if I'm off base. When you were talking about centering your own feelings, like in your own life, like I'm just like, what is that even like? Like, I can't wait for that. And as a white woman, like, let's be honest, like the world centers my feelings. And so is that what you meant by
Yes.
cultural differences?
Yes, it is. I mean,
so for people that can't see you, please.
I'm Black. I'm a Black woman. Tracing my heritage to Sierra Leone on my mom's side. I'm 51 and I'm an 80s kid. And during the 80s, there were a lot of social science studies talking about like what's quote unquote wrong in the Black community. And it was serving a specific political agenda. And most of the studies concluded that at that time that it was single Black women and single Black moms were at the root of all crime, poverty. And I grew up reading these things because I was like that kind of nerdy kid. And so it's like, I'm never going to be that way. And I'm going to quote unquote save my community. I know they call it respectability politics, but like, I really want to break that down for a minute. But I thought like by not being the stereotype that I was going to elevate other Black people because I didn't want bad things to happen to them. Like that was like what was going on in my teenage brain that got calcified over the years and showed up in other areas of my life. And it's like, I can be supportive of different communities, but I don't have to save anybody because they don't need saving.
Yeah.
They're fine. And so then like also in centering my feelings, like that comes professionally. It's like I had to put everybody else's feelings and emotions first. And I wasn't allowed to have feelings and emotions because I'm there to do a job. And it's like, no, I get to have feelings and emotions and I'm allowing that to inform my personal life.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that experience. Like I'm still reeling from that guy. And I don't even think that study is the appropriate word for it. Like it's just, thank you for sharing that. It's really interesting when you start to pull the thread, like where it all comes from and things like that, that you read growing up. What I'm taking away from this conversation is that we can pull from so many different experiences. They are cultural. They are from our family of origin. They are from our past relationships. And honestly, like this coincides with when I talk about someone's negative self-talk and they ask me like, where does it come from? I talk about those three things. It comes from your social conditioning, culture, it comes from your family of origin, and it comes from past relationships that you have. Like it all kind of integrates. And so it's up to us. And I'm just right behind you. I'm about to be 49, also a child of the 80s. I think just now I'm starting to get to the place where it's both naturally coming to this part of my life where I'm seeing my habits, and also in a place where I'm, ending a marriage where I wouldn't say forced to, but it's just definitely a topic that's come to the forefront of like, okay, why do I keep ending up in these relationships and then also staying in ones that might not be the best for either of us? And here I am, anxiously attached. So stay tuned for the solution, everybody.
Yes. Well, I think if I can just.
Yeah, we have a couple more minutes.
My parents died when I was young-ish. So I was like in my early 40s when my parents died. Tomorrow's not promised to us. And I don't want to live the rest of my life, however long that is, waiting for somebody's text. I want to live that time doing what I love and being with people that I love and living in a place that I love. And that's what I want to do. So I'm not saying it's a remedy, but like having that realization that I don't have forever, that kind of helps.
I love that. And thank you for kind of giving us the 10,000 foot view. I'm going to be a little bit more micro for a second, like in my closing thoughts on this. And just, I think what I'm about to walk into, as I start dating, probably casually going forward, at least at first, is that it helps me to understand, like, this is just how brains work. Like, what I'm really looking for is, like, when I'm waiting for someone's text, it's the hit of dopamine. Like, truly, that's what it is that my brain wants. And also, it's going to be nice to not have the agenda of, like, I want to belong to someone. I'm using air quotes here. And, like, I want them to belong to me. Like, I'm very clear. It's like when I start talking to someone, they have other options. Like, I don't want to be that person's only option because I cannot show up for you in an exclusive environment. And so, like, please, by all means, see other people. Like, I cannot be everything to you, which there's definitely a part of my brain, a part of me that, like, wants to be that everything for someone. So it's going to be an interesting, and I'll probably keep people posted along the way. It's going to be an interesting ride. Probably not without some crashes, and so is life. It's not going to be linear.
It won't be boring either. Yes.
Emily has been with me here on my team for 10 years. I've mentioned her so many times on the podcast, and she's like, Andrea, you always have the best stories. And I'm like, it's because I have a goddamn high tolerance for risk. That's why. And I always get myself into these predicaments. And I'm like, how did I get here? Oh, yeah, because I'm me.
Yes.
I'm like, that sounds like a good idea. Let's just throw caution to the wind. At least I don't drink anymore. That's been helpful. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on and being transparent and candid and sharing your experiences. We all appreciate it so much.
Thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been fun. Listeners, thank you for being here. You know how grateful I am for your time. And your time is incredibly precious. So thank you for spending it with me and my guest today. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, listeners, if you work for a company that does professional development, did you know that I offer leadership training, more specifically, empathy and assertiveness and how it makes stronger teams? You can see more on my speaking page at andreaowen.com/speaking, where there's also a contact button there so you can fill out that form and let's chat.
No one told us the truth about parenthood. Why? This is the podcast everyone needed before they had kids, because now that those little ones are here, there is a lot to unpack. I'm Rachel Shepardota, and I am your host for the podcast No One Told Us, where we tell the truth about parenting and let you in on all the stuff you really should have known about before having kids. I am the founder of Hey Sleepy Baby, but this podcast is so much more than sleep. We'll be diving into all the topics that you really care about and need to know while you do your best job raising those adorable, tiny humans. Our goal is to just make you feel less alone and less overwhelmed. There are so many things that no one tells us before becoming a parent, and I think that we should really pull back the curtain on becoming a first-time or second-time mom or dad to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll have a little education, a little fun, and a whole lot of heart that goes into each and every episode. So join me and our amazing guests each week to hear us talk about what no one told us.